Hi everyone, welcome again to our talk with Aisha, founder of Spot, and Amelia, writer from Mula. And if you guys didn't manage to catch us on the 11th of October, we decided that because we had a lot of technical difficulties that night, that we would do a retake for everyone else because I feel like, or we feel like this conversation needs to be heard and everyone needs to have a full understanding of what is going on. Okay, so hello. Thank you for joining us tonight. And our special guest, our special guest today is
Yes, our ghost. It's Halloween.
yeah, I'm prepping for it. Is Siti Aishah Hassan Hasri, founder of Spot, an organization that provides young people comprehensive sexuality education. And today we're going to be touching on an important topic in conjunction with International Day of the Girl. And it is a day to empower women while educating the public about the issues that young girls deal with on a day-to-day basis. Okay.
Sure.
So yes, Aisha, hello.
Hi, Amelia. Thank you so much for having me, Amelia and MulaZine. I'm so excited about our conversation, and thank you for redoing this again.
Yeah.
I also believe, as what you said, this conversation must be put out there. You know,
Yes,
hopefully people will enjoy our little chit chat here tonight.
Silakan. If you like this little chit chat, like subscribe or like tell us, and then we can do more of it. You know, yeah. The song that we had on the day, it is actually by Sudirman, Milik Siapakah Gadis Ini, and we were planning on dissecting or maybe just like introducing that, you know, the song in itself was quite problematic, right? Like there's a verse in there that says, milik siapakah hati ini, bagai berkurun lama kesepian, ingin aku mencurahkan kasih kepada yang sudi, adakah ia sudi? Now from this, he doesn't know who this woman is, you know, like, but he's fallen so madly in love with her, which I love at first sight, gila babi, you know, like terus boom. And you know, to the point where he wants to give her all this love that he's got, and then realizes, like, you know what, like, does she even want it? And while the issue of consent is of course very, very important, before we even start thinking about consent, let's dial it back, okay? Our society especially romanticizes love at first sight. You know, in today's like media, everyone's like, oh, you know, and my question is, like, should he even gaze at her to the point that he was fantasizing about her, even without her knowing who he is as a person and him not knowing her as a person, you know?
Kan, that sense of entitlement. But I would just say two things to start with. Number one, creepy. And number two is I am an 80s baby, so I'm actually very familiar with the song. Yeah. It's one of the songs that I grew up listening to, and I used to sing it with my aunts. So to answer your question, what is this?
Yes.
I believe when speaking of gaze, as females, we've been trained to become the subject of the male gaze, you know, like you mentioned just now from, I think you said something about advertisements, media being romanticizing love at first sight. Kan? So from media, music videos, films, from the times in kindergarten, you know, when a little boy looks at a girl a lot, and then the girlfriends will be giggling kat tepi tu. When you tell your teacher because you actually feel uncomfortable about it, the teacher will say, oh, it's okay, it's because he likes you, you know, that kind of thing.
And then normalize that.
Yeah, and all the way up to government surveillance, I believe. It's institutional, it's systemic. We have been trained to get comfortable by being watched because we are the ones responsible to teach our children what's okay, what's safe, what's normal. Like you said, normalizing it on girls. Yeah, and that's completely not normal, actually.
Betul, that is so true. And actually, like the sense of the, you know, like you said just now, the male gaze, like you looking onto me with such entitlement, as if like it was your right to begin with, kan? Yeah. So, and I think when people think when we talk about the male gaze, the problem I feel stems from kita tak faham, like a lot of people actually believe that I'm just looking, I'm just appreciating beauty. There's no harm here. It's only happening in my mind. I'm not acting it out, right?
Oh
And the
my
thing is,
God.
like, this is the seed of the problem, like people don't actually realize that, this is how you plant the seed into something greater, right?
Unfortunately, they don't have that level of awareness.
Itulah.
I believe that's what you're trying to say, kan?
Yes, I think so too.
I
You
think
said it.
it is wise for us to familiarize ourselves with some theories out there, for our viewers. I believe if we want to talk about male gaze and how we, have an opinion upon it, I think we should read up on critical theories,
Yes.
on sociology theories, gender theories, the male and female gaze, if I'm not mistaken, it falls under media studies. We need to read about psychoanalysis. You need to develop that awareness. You need to get yourselves educated. Then you will be able to decide for yourself whether what they are doing is right or wrong, what you are doing instinctively is right or wrong. Build that sense of agency, because we will all thrive when we have that agency within ourselves.
Betul. That is so true. Like, and how else are you going to be aware if you don't know about these theories, kan? Like, you are sheltered under the ignorance is bliss type of category.
Oh,
right?
We need to speak about that.
Yeah, I know, right? So that's another topic another day. Okay. Yeah, it's too much.
Yeah.
Too much. Yeah. Do you think like this is the start of hypersexualization of children's bodies in the context of the caregiver wanting to protect the child's innocence? Like, so for example, like, sebab we've been, accepted that it's okay for a guy to look at you, and then therefore kita punya mak bapak will be like, oh, you know what, kita tak boleh pakai bikini semua, like kita tak boleh pakai, like, then we become the problem. So and then we start implementing these ideas upon young girls to cover up in layers and layers of clothes, or to, you can't wear that, it's inappropriate. And I'm like, but to be honest though, it happens with or without clothes. Do you know what I mean? Because people with hijabs get raped too. And that's a fact, So,
and girls wearing baju kurung and tudung labuh in school gets pregnant too. So, and
let's talk about that as well,
Yeah. So this question, thank you so much, Amelia, for asking this question. It has a lot to be done with that word shelter and protect that you were saying just now.
Intention tu ada baik sebenarnya.
It's yes. So parents, intention, shelter, protection. I'll give you an example based on my experience, okay? Because I work with children and parents, kan? I'll take an example of period. Because as you mentioned just now, I talk to children about puberty and give them the knowledge around the topics of sex and sexuality, because it has everything to be done with that growth development period. So period, menstruation. Through my years of speaking with parents and children, I realized that parents find it difficult to talk to girls about period sebab it borders on a very sensitive subject, which is sex or reproductive health, kan? And they choose to protect these girls punya innocence by not talking to them about it, right? Like you said just now, dressing them up from to restrain their freedom. Cakap macam, oh, you tak boleh main bola dah dengan budak lelaki. Oh, you tak boleh hug your brothers because you have different sets of genitals. I believe that people need to understand this, that we are all born as sensual beings. We all know that babies need to be held, children need hugs, and all sorts of touches, right? And we need to address this with children, young people, before it is translated into sexual behaviors, sexualized behaviors. Because
where's the line, kan? Where's the fine line, right, between me touching you as a form of care?
Safe and unsafe touches. Yes, that's very true. So we need to address this, because kalau dia buat kat diri dia sendiri, satu hal. But if dia macam, they are 6 and they saw something and then they started doing it to their cousins without knowing that it's actually sexualized behavior, that will become problematic on so many levels. So
yes.
I need young people to understand this, that parents understand this, that they have the power to make this choice, to inform their children, to have open and respectful conversations around the topics of their bodies, about boundaries, about consent, to refuse to tie ignorance, yang tidak mengetahui ni, dengan innocence, because they are two separate things, like you said just now. Furthermore, boundaries and consent are very abstract concepts. To address abstract concepts takes more than just placing physical restrictions.
Yes.
Sama juga macam government separate male and female on trains or buses, for example. The thing is, if we don't teach our children about their bodies, about sex, we end up probably perpetuating violence. We need to teach them so that they can protect themselves at all times, especially when they are not around us. We need to teach them so they don't harass, so they don't assault. We need to inform our children that when people treat them like shit, it's not because they care for you, okay? And we also need to stop hitting our children and saying, mak buat ni sebab mak sayang dekat you tau, or daddy buat ni because I love you, We need to empower them with knowledge, inform them with sexuality education. That's how you protect their innocence and enable them a happy and healthy life.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And if that's the environment they're growing up with, right, with the violence already introduced and being wrapped around love, the violence is being packaged as I love you. Yes. Yeah, so that's how they will internalize love for their future relationships, whether it's with their own children or their partners, or so it's a vicious cycle, kan?
Yes,
it's a perpetuating cycle. And I think I love, because you were talking about children, and I love this quote from James Baldwin, and he said, children fail to listen to what we say, but they never fail to imitate us.
Monkey see, monkey do.
Yes, yeah. And that's the thing, with children, and that's a lot of your subconscious that you don't even know as an adult. All these, you're like a sponge when you're a kid, and then you absorb all these things and you don't even know where you internalized it. So it's definitely a conversation that parents need to have a more open discussion about, because with or without, it's happening, whether you're comfortable with it or not, it's happening. Might as well it happened with you, the conversation starts with you, and then they know, yeah.
So that you become that source, the good source of information, because that's much needed, and the children want it from you also.
Exactly.
I trust you.
I completely agree with that. And if it's a tough conversation for girls, imagine having it with men. Because they're a part of the solution, right? I mean, they're the other half of the solution. They need to be a part of this conversation. So if it's hard talking about it with girls, imagine trying to break down that barrier, So actually, we haven't really gone that far then, So macam tu lah.
We've going done back so much. Yeah, there's a lot more to do.
To go,
and hence we're having these kind of conversations to create awareness.
And we're just at the scratch of the surface, you see. There's so many layers and so many complexities that people just don't see because of the lack of awareness. So hopefully this brings someone some benefit, Excuse me. So just what you said on exposure, let's just touch a little bit on something that happened recently. So certain Telegram users were circulating unconsented pictures of women and children that have gone viral. And what is the main problem of this? Because I know a lot of people who are like, they just, it's like a photo, right? Just pass it along.
You kept coming with me with all these bombs, Amelia. Tahu lah, awak tu journalist, okay.
Yeah.
Research. We need to, again, I think we need to view this with some information and knowledge within ourselves as well before we can pass judgment ataupun have our own opinion on what has had the situation that you described. Of course, it's criminal in nature. I believe before people can make a decision on this, they need to research on how rapists view themselves and their actions, because our problem is not our girls. Our problem is when we don't see our girls as equals, when we don't believe our victims, when people don't believe that the girls have been violated. They argue, oh, itulah pakai lagi baju tak cukup kain, and she drank alcohol, she danced like a stripper, she takes naked pictures and then she gives them to her attackers, these people who are passing it all along. That means she deserves the violence lah. They actually think violence is the reasonable outcome of all the choices that these girls were making. And mass, the public, male and female both, pun openly blame the victims kan.
Betul.
Parents, out of fear, macam tadi kita cakap tu, they start to put on tudung on a toddler, so to normalize, supaya budak tu tak adalah ada teringin nak rasa pakai baju tak cukup kain ke.
Betul.
And it becomes a societal norm, but it doesn't solve the problem, does it?
No, it doesn't.
The thing is, people are ill-informed, right? If the boys sing songs like Milik Siapakah Gadis Ini tu, it's very romantic. They don't have bad intentions. They're just looking. Mana you tahu tak ada bad intentions. We raise our boys to believe that they are not rapists, because rapists are the bad guys inside the bushes yang pegang a knife ke, a gun ke, whatever weapon of their choice. Since the boys are not the bad guys sitting in the bushes, they're not rapists lah, kan? So all 30,000 of them, if I'm not mistaken, felt free, felt entitled, felt powerful to abuse these girls and women, because they believe that that's the reasonable outcome for them.
Yeah, and the image that we painted, like, do we think rapists wear a costume and like a tagline with a, I'm a rapist, it's not.
Hitam like orang minyak.
No, it's not. And exactly, right? Like, and the thing is, I agree with you that victim voices are always being suppressed, kan? And it is always the people who you think that are strangers are the ones that become rapists, but actually they're the ones that are closest to you. Like, they're the ones that are like your friends, like you brought them to see your mom, or like maybe even a close relative, like just one of those things that you don't really feel threatened by, then they do this to you. Yeah. And while
these people would provide you with the safe spaces, kan? So
yes, they should have, but then they're the ones who abuse your trust. Yes, and violate your body.
Violence lah, just now as we were saying.
Betul. And while we're talking about victims' voices, I must touch on this, because there was a recent case on Twitter earlier this year, mid this year, that proves there were some people who exist in the female community who misuse the Me Too movement to purposely and falsely accuse men or other people to becoming violent or as rapists or as assaults, but actually in reality they were just covering up their own hurt. And I think like we also need to acknowledge that this happens, that it's highly problematic, because it is already hard as it is for women's true victims for their voices forward to be heard and come forward and go through all this therapy. I don't need your catfish right now, like I feel that is the most selfish thing that any person could have done, is to lie about traumas that you've never experienced, because a lot of people go through this, and it is I think it's a criminal offense for me. It's slander, So it's just to put it out there, like if you know someone who has lied about it, please, sit them down. It's very harmful for a lot of people, because a lot of voices are being suppressed more now, So, but while we're on the victim side, moving on, what are the psychological and behavioral effects that young girls who have been through these situations would receive? Like, what kind of the experience do you think that it would have an effect on?
What kind of situations are you referring to?
Like the sexual harassment or the.
Okay, sexual harassment in Malaysia, the law is actually parked specifically under the Employment Act. In terms of law, policies and regulations, JAG, which includes AWAM and all that, has been campaigning for a sexual harassment law since the year 2000. So perhaps some of our listeners over here are like, oh, that's my whole life, maybe including you. But to answer your question, sexual harassment does not just affect someone's self-worth, someone's self-esteem. It affects your mental health. It deteriorates a lot. You might end up, depressed. You also might end up being suicidal, having suicidal thoughts, having suicidal tendencies. Even worse, committing suicide itself. So it perpetuates a cycle of violence, just now macam kita cakap tu, because you already robbed her of her integrity, of her innocence, of her dignity. We're talking about potential child marriage, forced intercourse, unwanted pregnancies, which may lead to baby dumping and infanticide, right? So you technically are creating a perfect candidate for SGBV, sexual and gender-based violence. Because she will put her value on how her partner perceives her. She will continuously seek their validation, including dengan rela hati going through mental and emotional abuse, because since young she had been continuously seeking her parents' validation, the society's validation, so she will stick with the kind of torture that is familiar. And because she has no awareness of her trauma, she eventually passes it on to her children, and it becomes inherited pain. So that cycle again.
Itulah kan. I actually want, if you don't mind, can you explain a little bit about this idea of passing down trauma? Because I don't think a lot of people understand that concept just yet.
Oh, it's actually a scientific arm. You should read up about it. It's a human something. So there's genetics that you pass on, and there's also personality traits. You can also read up on Carl Jung's archetype to understand more about that. So
okay, thank you. Actually, trauma can be passed down, and it's like it's when you are going through like bodily experiences like anxiety and depression and all that kind of stuff, it alters your DNA and stuff like that, right? Like
that's very true. As a matter of fact, there's a lot of research on, for example, say in Australia with the Aboriginals, and in New Zealand with the Maori community. Even most recent would be the Christchurch earthquake, if I'm not mistaken. I'll share with you some articles about it.
So that'd be great. And then we can put it in the link for our viewers to read. Yeah, that would be amazing. Thank you so much. But yeah, like that's a transgenerational trauma. You can actually Google that. It's pretty like, it's a huge, sect now. It's like it's a whole topic on its own. So another day, like I say, another day. Don't you think though, these concepts then, issues such as gays, consent, rights, should be highlighted in school? If not in sexual education, it should just be something that's kind of embedded in the education in general. It should be something that, it's like teaching us to wash our hands, something that you just do anyway, because you don't need like a wash your hand class, do you? So it's kind of like wash your brain class, but just instead of that, a class for it, it's just throughout the whole education system. This should be it,
It's wajib. That's why I'm in this business. Yeah. We need to teach them about social, emotional knowledge, inform them of these things so that they are better prepared for the world. So I believe that it's wajib, not harus, but wajib. And we should begin educating our young children as young as possible. Dekat sekolah ada, nama dia PEERS, P-E-E-R-S. So it's already in the public school curriculum. We just need to work the system, us as rakyat, parents, teachers, schools, CSOs, the government, to provide the right support that is needed to work the system, right? And we need to make the people involved accountable, again, have that sense of agency, because that will help a lot of things.
Okay. So when you say work the system, do you mean like teachers as well? Like teachers also having to, you know, understand that this topic isn't just about preventing children to get pregnant. You know what I mean? It's a lot more than that. It's about, like you say, it's about teaching people that women are equal, right? Like, yeah.
Gender equality, yeah, all that actually falls under comprehensive sexuality education. So comprehensive sexuality education talks about everything from hygienic routines throughout puberty, and of course you will use it all the way into adulthood. And we also talk about relationship building skills, you know, how to manage your emotions and your emotional changes that's happening during puberty.
Okay.
Also, to, you know, good and bad influences, peer pressure, and then we also talk about things like sex and sexuality, contraception, pregnancies,
the whole nine, the whole yard, like the whole thing. Yeah, that's amazing though. Like I really,
basically we're teaching people how to become human lah.
Right? Because we've forgotten how it's like to become human. It's a crazy time to be alive.
Highlighting that, Amelia, I think the point of all this is actually what we are seeing in our communities right now is actually the direct consequences of what we are not teaching our children. And that is why education is so important, and we need to inform it, and teachers play a huge part in this. Parents, government, as I mentioned just now. Yeah.
And I think like even, but like it takes a village, right? And literally though, it's gonna take a village. Correct. And I think even as teachers, I'm a teacher myself, so for me it's like, you know, you got to really ask yourself really hard reflective questions, like why am I so awkward about this, you know, like why is it so hard for me to talk about this? And I think when you start sorting out your own reservations and understand your own intention and the purpose of this, things become a lot easier for us, I think.
Definitely.
Yeah, I think another important question that I feel a lot of people, they want to help but they don't know how to help. So how might we be able to create safe spaces for our young girls?
That's a very good question. Also, the reason why I'm in this business. Okay, I believe as a community, we need to start caring. We need to start giving a damn. Go give a damn.
Yeah.
So, because we're talking about, I mean, this conversation all revolve around the International Day of the Girl, right? So I would want to quote the United Nations Convention of the Rights of the Child, how adults or community societies, we need to provide care and guidance in the best interest of the child. Yeah. So, safe space. The definition of a safe space is where a person would feel comfortable to be experiencing the space positively, feel secure, feel free to be themselves, and physically and emotionally protected from any harm. So girls, we need them to have safe spaces dekat rumah, kat sekolah, online, dalam community, which actually include public spaces, right? Yeah. So we need to claim those spaces for the girls to ensure that they are protected. I'll give you an example. On a personal capacity, a person or an adult can actually report immediately any sort of harassment that you see happening online towards a child or even other adults. Any type of harassment, to make sure that this is a safe space, you report immediately. Kalau kat rumah, you ensure that the girls and the children are protected from any harm. You know, make sure that the house cukup lampu, you know, and you need to know everyone's movements in and out, you know, so that the safety for everyone is being cared for, and ensure that they have trusted adults that they can actually speak with. When talking about public spaces, I believe most harassment actually happens in public transportation, right? So we all need to work together to prevent these harassments, right? Raising awareness is one of the steps of building support. So we need to work together lah. I'll give you an example. Art is a very powerful way in reducing and preventing violence and the threat of violence against women and girls in public spaces. You can see examples from all over the world. There's a Stop stop telling women to smile. I think
Okay.
you see in London and a lot of other countries as well. There's also women on the walls in Egypt. And in Argentina, women and girls, they actually designed and painted murals in a neighborhood that they
That's
actually
nice.
identified as unsafe. So
Nice.
they claim back the space.
Yeah,
But
that's
I
amazing.
personally, I'm just saying here, if I may, I'm not saying that you should all go out there, you know, as individuals, to go out there and be a hero and beat up every hamsak person who's getting at girls or rapists under the sun. I'm saying that we all should work together to be part of the system that does not require girls to have to fight harassment and violence in the first place. So you provide that safe space. You become part of the system that eliminates those violence, prevents, right? So when you see something, you have to say something. You need to give a damn. Because this actually involves everyone, not just girls.
Betul. Like I said, you know, the other half of the solution is actually men participating in this.
They're also half of the population.
Yeah, they also have the population. That's so true. What organizations or educational accounts could the public search for to seek help and advice from if they've encountered sexual harassment, or is as a child, or if, let's say, I have a child and my child went through it, can you give some organizations that they can call for support?
Okay, so I would say tiga tempat. PS, kalau children especially, PS the children, you contact them. Their contacts are available online. You also can contact AWAM and WAO. AWAM and WAO work with women specifically. Alternatively, you can also reach us at Spotline at 018-240-4033, and then we will help guide you. Also, I would like to remind everyone here that under the Malaysian law, kalau you witness such an offence, failure to report it is an offence in itself and shall, upon conviction, be liable for a fine not exceeding 5,000 ringgit or imprisonment for a term not exceeding 2 years, or both, which falls under Sections 27B of the Child Act 2001. So,
report,
to actually top this up, you need to get mental health support. This is more important now, especially for victims and survivors. I cannot stress this enough. Get mental health support.
We need to destigmatize going to the therapist and seeking for help. There's nothing wrong with seeking for help. You know, they did not study for a long time for them to not know anything. So really seek for help, guys. I recommend it. So we have basically a lot that we have unpacked for today, and this is just the first layer. Kita baru je give you guys the topics for you to that you can really go deep into, you know, because I think each question is actually a topic in itself, right? And I hope that this has been insightful for everyone who has stayed tuned and who's watched this for the second time, maybe, you know. Thank you, Aishah, so much for taking the time to do this again. I really appreciate it. And I know a lot of people appreciate your work. Thank you and your team. If you guys are interested to know about what Spot does, you can head over to their Instagram page at Hello Spot Girl. Yes, so I will leave Aishah with any concluding sentences. The floor is yours.
Okay, I've got two concluding closing reminders, messages. First one is your gaze. That is my brother closing the door. Sorry. Your gaze is your own responsibility. Because we're talking about, you know, milik siapakah gadis ini. We're talking about gaze. This Aishah, in the history of all Aishah, would like to remind you that the Prophet Nabi Muhammad SAW once said to Sayyidina Ali, "O Ali, do not follow the first look at a woman with another. There is no blame on you for the first, but you have no right to the second. So lower your gaze, mind your own gaze, go out, work out, enjoy nature, take up sports, you know, and start caring for each other." understand that consent need to be informed, enthusiastic, done sober, ongoing, and freely given, not coerced, right? So you need to get yourselves educated, be part of the solution and not the problem. Second message is we're having an online event happening on the 21st of November. So head on to our website, hellospotgirl.com, or check out our Instagram page, macam Amelia cakap tadi, @hellospotgirl, and get the information. There's a lot of useful talks, especially about consent and boundaries, especially about sex, STI, and pregnancies, as well as how to become an advocate. And jing, 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 this one is like super cool. We're gonna talk about porn addiction. So come and join us. The event is for free, you know, and help share it out with your network as well. That's how you can show support for us. So thank you so much.
Oh, I look forward to that. That's amazing, amazing work. Okay, I look forward to the 21st of November. It's actually a day after my birthday, so you know it's like yeah, it's amazing. So I think I will conclude with a take-home question for everyone tonight. And I'm going to ask you, how are you minding your gaze? And with that, I'll conclude with thank you, everyone. Have a safe and good night. Bye.
Thank you.